Hi, this is Christopher Bruza. Welcome back. Today we're here with the original AR-15, and I mean my original AR-15. This is the first AR I have ever owned. It was the second rifle I'd owned. It started its life as a Daniel Defense DDM4 V3. But before we get into it, please like, subscribe, and share. It helps immensely. Comment, please, and thank you. So this was my first AR. At the time I only had a bolt action Remington 700, and I wanted an AR. I spent the better part of a year doing research, and primarily on AR-15, M4 carbine, and some on Glock Talk, and really researched what set these rifles apart from each other. And at the time, Daniel Defense was one of the premier manufacturers. This is probably about 2010-ish, 2011. Anyway, I settled on the DDM4 V3. Big heavy quad rail, fixed front sight base, mid-length gas system, 16-inch barrel. It had a Magpul stock. Don't remember the grip. It was a decent rifle. And my original intention was to shoot it with open sights. And I kind of contemplated wanting an A2, but everything I read said don't do that. I love the aesthetics of an A2, but after the first range trip, we're leaving, my wife was with me, and she said, you need to get a scope on that gun. So that's what I did. And with the A2, that would have been, it's not impossible, but it's not easy and not as clean. I was young and dumb then, and bought a Burris 1-4, I don't remember the model name. Second focal plane, had a horseshoe reticle with some drop dots, and it shot very well. It had a fast fire mounted on the scope somewhere. I don't remember if it was the front or the back. It was completely useless. But second focal plane, it wasn't necessarily calibrated for my muzzle velocity and everything like that. So I guess you'd say I outgrew that scope and upgraded to the Trijicon ACOG 4x32. That is a spectacular scope. I think it's a bit overpriced for what you can get better scopes for the price, but it is a bulletproof, easy to shoot, great setup for the AR. As I said, 432. The eye relief is a bit short on it. I probably should have gone with the 3, what is it, by 30 something, 35, 32, 30, I don't know. The 3-power one has a longer eye relief, but I had the green reticle, horseshoe dot, worked spectacular. The Binden aiming concept, where even with a magnified scope, if you have a bright reticle, you keep 2 eyes open. And that scope is what forced me to start shooting ARs left-handed, because I am left eye dominant, and I also have an astigmatism in my right eye. And the scope did not work right-handed for me. So I changed over to shooting ARs left-handed, which I still do to this day. And I probably should shoot all rifles that way, but I'm too old and stubborn to learn properly, and I have God knows how many rifles that are right-handed. But that was a great scope. The glass was a little dark, and I had messed around with putting a aim point T2, actually it was T1 at that point, you know, offset and stuff with the 4-power. But with that Binden aiming concept, 4-power scope, you don't need it. At the time, that was my only AR. I didn't have anything, you know, set up for defense, close inside your home defense, but that scope was great. Eventually shot the barrel out. Best I could figure, it was in excess of 16,000 rounds. And when you put a bore scope down the barrel, there were chunks of missing rifling. Not like you know, gigantic segments, and not the entire portion of rifling, but there would be good chunks missing out of the edge of the rifling. Daniel Defense was well known for their cold hammer forged barrels. Since a lot of people have been doing it, and you'll notice I don't have a cold hammer forged barrel on there, and that's intentional. They might be more durable. It's debatable. They certainly aren't as accurate, but 16,000 rounds killed that barrel. And you'll also see here, I don't have a Daniel Defense bolt. Their bolts are highly regarded, or bolt carriers and bolts. I cracked the lug on one of the bolts. They replaced it. No hassles, called them up. They replaced it, but I no longer trusted it, so here we are with the BCM bolt. When I changed the barrel is when I put it into this specific configuration. And at the time I acquired other ARs, so I don't shoot this a whole lot. This sits in a bag, I guess you could say a go bag, ready to go, to grab it and use it for whatever I deem necessary. Got the mag in it, I got 4 mags on the bag, got my dope out to 600 yards written on the side, and it's kind of a quick access rifle if you want to grab something and go out the door. I guess I'll leave it there. Well, I mentioned the dope, so before the tour we'll get into that. I shoot the Hornady Tap FPD for personal defense, the 55 grain ammo in this rifle. But like my short barrel AR, I actually shoot the 75 grain Hornady Tap. Anyway, this is why I shoot in this rifle, and it's advertised 3240 feet per second. It does not leave this muzzle at whatever it was, 3240 feet per second. At 89 degrees, my Kestrel is showing it at 2,991 feet per second out of this barrel, and at 39 degrees, I'm showing it in it was like 2908, 2904, just over 2,900 feet per second. You still get pretty good ballistics out of it, out to about 600, which is intentionally why my dope stops there. And just in case anybody's curious, 200 yards, 0.4 mils, 300 yards, 1.1 mils, 400 yards, 2.1 mils, 500 is 3.4 mils, and 600 is 5.2 mils. Sufficient, not the greatest on earth, but it works. So we start at the butt, work our way forward on these tours. So starting at the butt, this is not the mag pull it came with. ARs, my major, well, other than cleaning them, my major complaint about ARs is the lack of adjustability on the buttstocks. And primarily it's because you got a buffer tube here and you got a charging handle that has to pass over part of it, and it's a problem. So the best one I've found for using a magnified optic is the LMT SOP mod. And as you've seen probably with my other ARs, this is a true LMT SOP mod. This is not the B5 imitation. So we've got the LMT SOP mod. I got a Ranger band on here, and that's because it normally wears a sling, and I keep the sling balled up under there so if it doesn't get caught on stuff, I pull it out of the bag, I just grab the sling, pull it, and it comes undone from this Ranger band, but it's on there. You might say I just broke my dope down because this is kind of like a, I guess, a civilian DMR style rifle. You'll see a little thing here. It's a sticker that says SFP for second focal plane, reminding me that this rifle is wearing a second focal plane scope. I believe this is the only second focal plane scope I still own, and there's a lot of times I will take this out just to, shoot it, make sure zero is still on, and knock the dust off it. I look down, okay, here's 500 yards, 3.4 mils, and I hold on the reticle at 2.5 power, 3.4 mils, and because I hold over just about everything, just primarily due to my PRS, and it's the way I'm more comfortable doing that rather than dialing and second focal plane. God, it annoys me. But so I have a reminder there, and you'll see I also have one on the scope. The buffer tube is stock. It's the one that came out of the Daniel Defense. And the end plate right here on the buffer is the Daniel Defense one, which I really like. I don't actually use it as a sling point, but there's a sling attachment there, which is spectacular. I don't know why other ARs don't come like that. The Daniel Defense, at least back when I bought this, they did. And it's very useful. So you got your sling attachment. Coming up, I have Rainier arms, ambidextrous charging handle. Again, I shoot this left-handed. This is one of the very early ones. It doesn't have the gas shield on here, but I'm not running a suppressor, so it's not really a problem. But you'll get the ambi charger. I love these charging handles. All my ARs have some flavor of that. Obviously, we have the Daniel Defense upper receiver matching Daniel Defense lower receiver. They're T-marked, so it's numbered. Now, I briefly mentioned the Bravo company bolt carrier and bolt. I'm running that in this just because I broke the Daniel Defense, and it shouldn't have broke or cracked a lug at 16,000 rounds. I'll see if I can find a picture. Back then, I don't know, I wasn't using an iPhone, so hopefully I can find a picture of it. This has been the BCM bolt's been great. I run BCM bolts in several rifles. Even if I'm not using the BCM bolt carrier, I'll use the BCM bolt. The safety is ambidextrous because I shoot this lefty, and this is the LMT ambi safety. I'm not particular on what safety I shoot. If it's an ambi safety that's the same on both sides, I'm happy. I've used several brands. I'll usually just buy whatever is in stock. I think this originally came with a hoe grip. Or maybe I put a hoe grip on it. Anyway, I've got my Bravo company grip. more vertical grip. I love these. I run them on everything except my AR-10. Great. Your palm gets pushed down forward. You've got this little duck bill back here. I think that's what it's called. Just fills the space and allows you to get your hand up higher without chewing it up on the interface between the grip and the lower receiver. Now, the trigger. Daniel Defense triggers are mil-spec triggers, which in my mind are unacceptable for any sort of shooting. I mean, if you want to shoot your rifle and hit targets out there, shoot it accurately. So this has what's become my standard AR trigger. It's the Geissele SSAE trigger. Spectacular trigger, still mil-spec. They're issued to the military, actually. This Geissele SSAE is found on the Mark 12 Mod 1. This scope is on the Mark 12 Mod 1, and this buttstock is also on the Mark 12 Mod 1. So the SSAE trigger. I don't ever change out the bolt release. It's not super functional to me, and shooting it left-handed, I've never felt the need, and there's no great solution out there for a bolt-on piece. If you buy an ambi lower, it's a different story. Over here, the mag release. I flip it over to show the mag release on this side. The normal mag release is right here, but this is wearing a Nordigen ambi mag release. So normally this is flat and partially recessed. The Nordigen piece, you push it here, it pivots and releases your mag just like you normally would there. And you can see these tap bullets are ballistic tip, or tap cartridges have a ballistic tip bullet. Nordigen ambi mag release, which I feel is important for a left-handed shooter. And while we're discussing, I mean, mags are mags. Everybody has got hopefully hundreds of them sitting around. It's just a Magpul mag, and you'll see it has the Terran tactical extension. I think it's a 4-round extension on it. I run these on my JP rifle, which is kind of set up for 3-gun, but it's on here also because, as I said, this is kind of a DMR grab and go rifle, and it just gets me a few more shots without having to reload. I debated whether even putting it in this video or changing it out, but it normally sits there on the rifle, so here it is. While I think of it, you'll see some paint marker around the rifle on some of the important fasteners. And I do that on most of my guns just to make sure a screw isn't backing off. You can visually inspect it. I guess that brings us to the scope. This is the only second focal plane scope I still own, and the reason I put up with second focal plane is this is an amazing scope. This is the Nightforce Compact 2.5 to 10 by 24. Generally this is not available to civilians. I bought this on a special run through Optic. Generally these are made for the military. Again, on the Mark 12 Mod 0. I don't know if they have the same combination of reticle and turrets, but I've owned this scope with. They used to make it in a 32mm objective, which is a good scope. fixed parallax, just like this one, and the 42mm objective, which has a variable parallax. Both of those are great scopes. This is a great scope also, and that's why it's wearing it. Personally, I feel a straight tube looks better on an AR, and this one has mill turrets, and it's a capped mill windage turret, which I love the capped windage turret, because you're going to hold off, at least with the first focal plane, you're going to hold off your wind generally. You might dial, or personally I might dial in spin drift, but on the range you're shooting a 223, I'm not going to worry about it. So it's got a 0 stop. I personally set it to be, well, this one is 9 clicks below 0, but I usually set it, 3/4 below 0, so something in there. And it's 1/10 of a mil adjustments, but it's only 5 mils per rotation, which if this were like a short action cartridge or something like a 6 Creedmoor, that's completely insufficient. 223, no problem. You saw 600 yards is 5.2 mils. I mean, it's just one full revolution, 0.2, you're there. If I can have the field of view required for 10x, 2.5 to 10x, I am going to zoom up and hold off, just because I prefer that. It's way easier to make corrections. Mil-IR reticle, I've had in quite a few Nightforce. It's okay. There's no way on earth I would shoot it in competition. On a rifle like this, it's fine. It's much better than a mil dot. It's much better than a Nightforce mil dot. I hate their mil dots. They aren't, the dots aren't filled in. The bands on the sides don't go all the way out to the edges. Actually, before this, I had a 1:4x24 Nightforce compact with the mil dot on it, and I hated it. I hated it. So this was a good change. It's got analog illumination on the side, night vision capable, very easy to use. I prefer it over the Digiloom that most of their scopes are running now. You aren't pushing in a button or holding in a button and counting how many times you push it. It's simple. You dial it and the reticle lights up, or you dial it down. It works well. And generally on a rifle you want simple rather than complicated. I usually run Badger Ordnance mounts. When I was putting this on 30mm to get my to get a good cheek weld where I'm not fussing around with my head, the height I required is 1.375 inches, not the traditional 1.5 inches you would put on an AR. The Badger Ordnance was out of stock, so I went with Nightforce. I've used these in a few instances. I used one on my 300 Win Mag quite a bit and had no issues with it. It's a unimount, obviously, because we're overhanging the fore end. They're decent. It's an alloy mount. It's not my first choice, but I'm not going to complain about it. I'm not going to change it. Even if I had a Badger of the same height, sitting in my garage or wherever, I wouldn't change it out. I would not bother. Nightforce makes a good mount, and as I'm saying that, I'm just realizing it's a Nightforce scope with a Nightforce mount. So I guess that's fitting. Coming up here, I no longer have the quad rail fore end. It was a 9-inch Daniel Defense quad rail, which is dead solid. I mean, it's big and chunky in your hand. It came with covers for the rail, but it's heavy, and I mean, it's heavier for a reason. That thing is solid like a tank. But when I put the new barrel on, I wanted to go to a low profile sight base so I could get a longer rail and get my flashlight out farther. With a 9-inch rail, you're really, real estate is at a premium, especially if you're going to use a tape switch and stuff like that. So I love the Geisley rails, and this was my first introduction to the Geisley rails. This is the Mark 1 Mod 1, one of the very early Geisley rails. This is not M-LOK, it's not key mod. It was proprietary to Geisley back then. You got a pick rail on the top, and every other slot is slotted to allow cooling of the barrel, and probably more likely the gas tube, which is right up in there. It has a QD on the back, which as a left-handed shooter is completely useless. You put your sling right here, comes off this side, you're wrapped around, your ejection port is right here, your sling is coming up. It causes misfeeds. If I were in charge of designing this rail, I mean, they're on the Mark 14 now or something, but if I were in charge of designing this rail, I would have left it off the right side, simply so a left-handed shooter couldn't put it there. But it's a great rail. These are proprietary. You have to put these on. Like if you go back and look at my short barrel AR video, I have the Mark 8 rail, I think, where it basically has these Picatinny sections on the front like I have, but they're built into the rail, and then it's M-LOK back here. These are pieces you have to screw on. They fit in the slot, and then you've got 2 screws, or 3, I guess, for this bottom one. It's a good rail design. It fits well. It's solid. There is no deflection there. It feels great in the hand. I love this rail. I love it. So I have a flashlight on here, just like any AR. It needs a flashlight, especially if it could potentially be used for defense, and not just at the range. So the way I have this one set up, cloud defensive tape mount, coming over to a thorn tail and a Surefire Scout Mini, and works. You can use it ambi, left, right shooting on the top, and even at 2.5 power, with the way this scope is designed, you put your thumb here as like a C grip over the rail grip, whatever you want to call it. You don't see your thumb there. You don't see the flashlight, anything. So thumb over. I used to run the dual switch on here that Surefire makes, which it puts a tape mount in it, and then you also have the switch on the side. But with that, you can't run the thorn tail. It interferes with the thorn tail, and it sticks out too far. As I mentioned before, this sits in a rifle bag, and it just really adds a ton of width. Now the bipod is simply on here to hold it for the video. I'm not going to run a bipod on this rifle. If I need a bipod, I'm going to rest it on something, rest it on a bag, rest it on a tree limb, car hood, whatever. This is just to hold it for the video. And we didn't discuss the barrel. This is a Noveski stainless steel 5.56 chamber 7-inch twist barrel. Check the headspace with it and everything. It is a spectacular barrel. It shoots well. The only AR I have that's more accurate than this is probably my JP. This barrel will put anything to shame. It's very, very accurate. And compared to, I think you can get it on a JP, but compared to my JP, I love the satin finish. It's like a media blasted finish, and it's a great barrel. It's just a standard contour. It's not light, not heavy. I don't remember the designation. I'm using the Noveske gas block, which it comes with, and it's a pinned gas block. It comes that way. You don't have to send it to anybody to have a taper pin put in. That's a huge plus for Noveske, in my opinion. I think a gas block needs to be pinned. Even if you have set screws, like on my short barrel AR, it needs to be pinned as well. And the last thing we have not discussed is a Surefire muzzle brake. This is actually a QD style muzzle brake for some of the Surefire suppressors. I don't run a suppressor on this rifle. I mean, a 16-inch barrel with a suppressor, it's absurd. And it doesn't really seem to fit the kind of DMR use of it, but I went with a brake instead of a flash hider. It's a very, very effective brake. And if you're running a magnified optic, having an effective brake is going to help you spot your misses. And everybody misses. The people, not that everything is a competition, but the people who win competitions are the people who spot their misses and can correct quicker than others. So I have an effective Surefire brake on here. I mean, it works well. It's loud. I wouldn't want to fire it without hearing protection, but this is not what I'm going to grab in a home defense situation. That's where my short-barreled AR with a suppressor comes in. So this is the original AR. It's my original AR. I don't know what you would call it. I guess it kind of designated to a DMR role, but I like this gun. I would never part with it. I put so many rounds through it. I have a connection with this inanimate object. So I appreciate you watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, enjoy.